Thanks for pressing play. You're listening to the Brody Windsor Group on Real Estate, the podcast for homeowners seeking guidance and support on everything related to owning a home. This includes much more than just buying or selling. We've got you covered for everything from mortgages and financing to home maintenance tips, renovation and design advice, and of course, the latest insights and analysis on what's happening in our local communities. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm very happy to welcome Stephanie Bonin from Bonin Design on the show today. Stephanie is a local landscape architect. Stephanie, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
So today we're going to talk about your business, how things have evolved over the last few years, and I'd like to let the listeners know and the viewers know kind of what it is that a landscape architect does and how you help homeowners sort of realize their vision for what they want to do outside of their home. Can you give us a little bit of a background on sort of your journey into the business, into your career?
Yes. So basically, landscape architect is, you have a span of different scales of landscape architects. So you'll have a landscape architect that's working on smaller scale projects, and just as residential or even just a garden itself. And landscape architects that work on large scale. So you could have large residential design, or large communities. You could have
Big commercial projects.
So basically, obviously, I'm more of your local residential. Okay. I'll still do some municipal projects like parks or entry features, things like that. That's municipal, and some commercial. So for example, there's a company that needs the landscaping done around Tim Hortons or things like that. So, okay. But mainly at this point, I'm more residential. So basically, my journey began. I started off in studying biology.
Okay.
So I have a science background to this. I studied at Concordia in biology, really wanting to study animal behavior. So I was more on the ecology side. So basically my love for outdoors obviously remained. I then wanted to study how to design zoo enclosures. So I worked actually at Calgary Zoo for a summer after my bachelor, and found out who designed zoo enclosures. It was a landscape architect. I had no idea what that word was before, or that profession. And so I looked into it, and it seemed to kind of tick all my boxes. Working outside, a mix of science and art, which obviously I like. I have an artistic sort of background a little bit. So that's basically how I ended up studying landscape architecture out at Guelph. And after that, had a couple of jobs working on more large-scale commercial and large-scale home development, okay, in Toronto and in the city of Montreal. And then once I wanted to start my own business, I started off doing residential, and then I stuck with that since.
And how long has that been now?
It's been 18 years.
18?
So since
okay.
2005 that I sort of went on my own. Mainly for, the ability to time manage, do my own thing. And I like to be my own boss. So that's basically the reason why I did that. And so just kickstart from there.
And how has your career sort of evolved since... Well, over the last 18 years, like have you gotten much busier? Are you comfortable with the amount of work that you're doing? And how have you seen things evolve in your field since you've been doing this residentially here in the West Island, where I've been selling real estate for just a couple more years than you've been in business? So I'm curious as to see, like, how has that all happened and how has that evolved? I've noticed changes considerably. So
it evolved a lot, and I think my profession just sort of built itself in a way. So, for example, to explain it better, when you hired a landscaper, you just called up a landscaper, and or you knew from so and so who he or she had worked there,
Yeah.
and you liked what they did. You hired that landscaper, and they did your pathway. They fixed your garden. It was like just hiring directly from the landscaper, hiring the landscaper. So basically it started off a little bit more like that, where I was designing and then I'm just showing the landscaper what to do, or showing the homeowner and they would hire a landscaper. It evolved more because there's such a need from the municipality. So the need for permits.
Yeah.
Also, not necessarily just the need for permits, so which the landscaper is not necessarily doing because he's hands-on doing the work, and I say he or she. It's more because there's paperwork to be done. So there's things to submit to get a permit. So that paperwork is not necessarily done by the landscaper.
Right.
And so there's that niche that sort of developed, but also the fact that the homeowners wanted to have a larger vision or an idea prior to the landscaper executing.
Right.
So yes, there were maybe more things involved, such as not just a walkway and a garden, but they weren't at home necessarily as much to sort of supervise the work. They're at work, so they want to already know ahead of time what is going to be implemented. So the plan will then provide that sort of ease of mind for the homeowner to, and obviously comes with that. If you have a plan, then you could estimate cost, and then so there's an understanding of what that cost is. So it really is a sort of a niche that sort of developed just because the homeowners wanted more to be done, and the city's requirements were becoming greater. So I just sort of fell into a niche there that is increasing in demand, and it hasn't stopped.
Absolutely
increasing.
Yeah, I would agree. So part of the reason that that I wanted to have Stephanie on the show is that my wife Kim and I recently built our home in Baie-D'Urfé, and we hired Stephanie to do our landscape design. So it was a good learning experience for me. I'm sure I'm probably just like your typical client who calls you up too late in the process. I realized in our first few conversations that I probably should have had you in earlier in the process. But what really surprised me, and where I really found there was great value in having you help us, was all the things that you've mentioned so far. But in addition, things like being able to price all the different elements, and pointing out to me and Kim all the little things we hadn't even thought of. Like, oh, by the way, you have to have your electrician do this, and your irrigation here, and then your fence guy, and so there's so many different elements in play that all come together that when you're doing a big project, I think trying to do it on my own, I would have made all kinds of terrible mistakes. And I realized very quickly that you were very well tuned in to what the city requirements were. So that saved me a ton of time in back and forth with the city saying, oh, I want to do this. And then the city saying, sorry, no, you're maxed out on the amount of pave uni you can have, or you can't cut this tree, or you can't do that with your fence. So I found there was a lot of value there in saving time, and also you having the expertise of what to do. So I think my advice is anyone that's taking on a big project, I think there's great value. And just like having an interior designer when you're going to do a major renovation or build a home, rather than just trying to deal with the contractor yourself, having that go-between and being able to make sure that your space is designed effectively and it's going to be something that you're going to enjoy. Because you pointed that out as well to us through the process. Like, have you thought about where your sitting area is going to be, and where your dining area is going to be, and which way the sun's going to be shining, and all these different things that you may not think of, that when you bring in somebody that's an expert, I thought it was very, very valuable. So good experience for us, but certainly...
An eye-opener.
An eye-opener, yeah.
Yes, so basically, I'll consider the outdoor as basically like when you're redesigning or designing your kitchen, you have to think about where the sink is going as per the stove and all that sort of layout. Just like an interior designer, the outdoor should have that same consideration in elements because we're bringing our indoor outdoor now. And so to want to do that, we're going to have to put some time in designing properly, because you don't want to put your shed in one corner and then it ends up you want it the flip side because of the direction of the pool or vice versa. So
and aesthetically too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You like, I remember you pointing out to me, like, here's where you're going to be sitting in your lounge chairs next to the pool. And you really want to just be looking at the side of the fence. So you probably want to have some nice plants there.
Right. Or also from the indoors. So
yes, that too.
From the indoor, looking at, from here. So if I know where your sight lines are from the indoors, you might want to see a specific decorative tree or a fountain or the pool because you want to be in the kitchen being able to see the kids in the pool. Those are all little things that as we're discussing, that wish list is kind of the
super important. It was really interesting.
So what you're mentioning mentioning before about timing of getting a landscape architect involved.
Yes,
of course, ideally it's prior in a new built situation, of course, prior to building the new build. Of course, you have an architect involved because you have a model of a home that you like, things like that. And they look at obviously the setbacks and what size potentials you could have your house. But the landscape architect will also help with the orientation. I know that, some lots are pretty standard, but some lots aren't. Some lots have slopes. Some lots have a lot of shaded area or trees or there's different contexts. So by involving the landscape architect, we could kind of discuss all those elements that are not just the building.
Right. So right at planning stage, like when you're designing the house.
Before, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, an architect could turn to me and say, we've kind of preliminarily put a house in this location. Would you set it more forward? Would you set it back? We want to look at the amount of parking space in the front. Okay, we'll set it a bit back because in such reasons. So depending obviously on the size of the lot and what those restrictions are, there's other elements that could come into play before actually just building the home and then
thinking about the landscaping afterward.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and kind of going, okay, we just have to do the outdoor context. Obviously.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'll use your example. For example, your balcony in the back.
Yeah. So
if you, I'm not saying that you don't want it or didn't want it. It's just that if, for example, you knew that was part of the percentage, well, maybe you would have made it a different size and then you would have gone to the ground. So there's,
considerations.
Depending on those city requirements, again, you sort of evaluate them all at the same time.
Yeah, they're all pretty different, the different municipalities in the West Island?
Yes, so that's another important point is that I don't necessarily know all the bylaws, but I kind of know which bylaws to go and analyze.
Yeah.
But it's also that I have a rapport with the towns. So if there are some questions, there will be questions. I'll have questions. But at least then I could, bridge that gap between the homeowner and the builder, let's say, if there are questions from there, and then just so that we could satisfy what those needs are, and I know which questions to ask and how to, or just to sketch it out, and then have these preliminary questions saying, okay, if we build our driveway in this area, would this be permissible? So just getting those preliminary questions, and then the homeowner could take a decision whether they want a U-driveway or not. Those are all little.
Like the guy at Urban Planning, when you walk in, they recognize you. You're there all the time, so they know exactly that you know what you're doing.
Right.
So it's going to speed things up and make things
absolutely.
a little smoother.
We're here to accomplish a project.
Yeah.
Which is, my goal is always to arrive at satisfying the bylaws, which is a community goal.
Yeah.
These bylaws are set because there are certain elements that are important to the municipality, and therefore, how are we going to arrive at creating a design that satisfies these, but also satisfies the client. So I really see myself in the middle between the homeowner and the city.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, key go-between, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to the trends we were sort of touching on, the outdoor living space becoming very important.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all sort of experienced that accelerate through the pandemic over the last few years.
Right.
I'm sure in your industry and in your business, you noticed the same thing. Is there anything that you're seeing a little bit different in the last couple of years since the pandemic of what people are looking for, what they want to do in their outdoor space?
Yeah, I would say the trends are, there's different things that come into play. So for example, there's the environmental side.
Yeah.
So the environmental side, we're really looking at water treatment. So the water aspect. So our rains are more torrential. There's a lot more issues with water infiltration in homes, things like that. So we'll call it smart landscaping is, just kind of named that, is important. So it's how are you going to either maintain the management of your water.
Yeah.
So the cities don't want you draining in using their systems, and they also don't want you draining towards the neighbors. So how are we going to satisfy those two requirements by managing the water on your site, and also not infiltrating in our basements, which are obviously we'll call it the main cause of why we need to redo our landscaping, is because there's water infiltration.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and it's an additional cost that people don't necessarily want to do, but they're I'll call it regular house corrections that need to happen over the years. So I would say that's a trend in terms of the environmental side. Obviously, there's also the environmental side, meaning variety of species of trees and shrubs. If we can go native, that would be great.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily always fall into that. It's not like a conversation necessarily with homeowners. There would be a specific homeowner who would ask that. Well, at least what I'm noticing.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably goes with homes as well. You have you had a sort of a little bit more of a gray tones that were sort of the newer way of aesthetics of the home.
Yeah, we saw that outside too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so and I'm talking about the trends in the pavers. So for example, they used to be bumpy. Now they're a lot more of they call them lisse, and more
Smooth.
flat or smooth surface. Thank you. And they tended to go towards the grays. There was that need for the gray. And now it's just we're kind of going back a little bit to those earth tones. So the homes I see a couple of new homes that are coming, and they're a lot more of those sort of beige colors.
Yeah.
And the same thing, then we're trying to, find the paver that kind of goes with that feeling, as opposed to being more of a colder gray color.
Yeah, stone color.
You're getting that. Yeah. Of course, in terms of material, if you could go with a stone, natural stone, then you're getting into something, to me, I find it's timeless.
Totally.
So, integrating stone, I know it's not necessarily always in your walkways or your driveways, obviously. But if you're integrating it in a low wall or, garden stones, it just kind of gives a little bit of that,
natural
natural
feel.
And soft feel.
Yeah.
And it goes with the context, obviously, that you're.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
It's not for every home, but
I would agree.
Integrated.
I think it makes a huge difference, the outdoor aesthetic, to the value of a home too. It's taking aside the real estate view of it all. When you're touring homes with buyers and there's a beautiful landscape job, we recently sold one that you had done in the backyard on, that sold with multiple offers rather quickly. And I think the way that the backyard was designed and the way it had been beautifully done really helped maximize the value and the attention we got from buyers on that home. It really was special. So people are worried often, if I put a lot of money into my landscaping, is it something I would get back in resale? And I think my answer to that is it depends on the price point, the home, the neighborhood. But I think for the right property, the right amount of nicely done landscaping, especially for more higher end properties, I think it's a very, very smart investment. I think it definitely is a great ROI when it comes to resale.
Right. And I mean, there's the word that people don't necessarily want to hear, the word maintenance.
Yeah.
But everything out there has maintenance, things to take care of, just as you do in the interior, the exterior does. So a proper design obviously will be well kept if it's maintained. So there's, you're not going to have an elaborate garden or backyard if you know that you're not going to necessarily put the time and money in to maintain it.
Yeah.
So I think those two things have to go hand in hand.
So the zero or low maintenance garden that looks beautiful is a bit of an oxymoron. Would you agree?
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, everything takes at least some weeding
Yes.
and some maintenance.
Well, definitely, I would say that the trends are, in general, I know that we spoke about color trends and the ecological trends, but the overall, and I'll say in general, is really the cost of things are more now. So you'll have the labor and materials cost more than they were even, prior to pandemic.
Yeah.
And in general, the permit process from the city is just more elaborate. So the actual time consuming factor of getting your landscaping executed must start earlier in time so that you foresee those longer permit processes.
For sure. And even on the landscape contractor side of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their projects are taking longer. I guess these guys have issues like everyone with labor and getting workers, and costs are higher. So yeah, it's and they seem to be busier and busier and busier.
Right. They're busy.
So we're seeing more pools going in. We're seeing more outdoor living spaces, right? Are you seeing a lot more like covered porches and outdoor fire pits, and people really want to take advantage, right, of that backyard space?
Yeah, right. Whatever we have that's indoor, we want outdoor as well. I got a covered dining area this summer, and I was out there all the time. I cannot tell you I ate in my kitchen in the rain. I was outside. I mean, I enjoyed being out there, and then that's really what our summers are for. So definitely the trend of wanting to be outdoors, but also wanting our luxuries that we have indoor. So whether it be our sound system, to our our screens to fight off the mosquitoes. Yeah. The lighting if we invest in our backyard, we're definitely going to want to see it while we're sitting there in the evenings. Yeah. So all those elements really obviously bring up the cost, but the homeowners' wish lists become longer.
They do, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
I've noticed it as well, even with buyers shopping.
Yes.
People want the pool, they want the covered porches, the screened-in covered porches, if your area is mosquito laden.
And all that being,
huge
tech,
yeah,
all automated.
Smart. Even seeing TVs back there. And
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that involves obviously other professionals to come in, because obviously I can't be a specialist of everything.
Yeah.
So I see myself much more of a generalist and in that field. And then obviously you'll bring in the lighting specialist, and you'll bring in the, whether it be electrical or irrigation, all those sort of specialists
that will for fireplaces, if you want to do gas ones, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. And outdoor kitchens. Mm-hmm. Seeing people do those pretty elaborate outdoor kitchens these days as well.
Right, exactly. And so that I find that is a trend as well, is that there's just more product out there now to different kitchen countertop or counter kitchen models, to different types of pergolas, gazebos, you know,
The
different
choices are
types
endless.
of decking. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the materials out there are a lot. There's a lot more to choose from, which obviously, you know, pleases your homeowner. But as a designer, you have a better choice as well.
Yeah, I guess it offers more options, right? You've got the composite decking versus wood, which is coming.
Right.
What are some common mistakes you see people make when tackling a landscaping project?
So the common mistake would be necessarily not to have hired a landscape architect.
Right.
So, trying to install things themselves, I don't necessarily see that as much. It's, you know, people know to call up a landscaper.
Yeah.
Now, whether the landscaper does the work without a permit, I don't necessarily see that, but it's possible. And then that's the problem that the homeowner will face, or the landscaper will face, if an inspector comes by and, you know, stops the work. So I would say
doing
maybe
something without a permit,
doing
that's a
things
big
without
one.
permit,
Yeah.
you know, I don't see it because, of course, if they call upon me,
You're doing a permit.
I'm doing it.
We hear about it though.
Right. So exactly.
Industry.
And I don't necessarily go see a client who, okay, I tried to do this, but now I need a permit.
So have you ever, how about we're just maybe an inexperienced contractor and homeowner trying to take on a big landscape project and screw the whole thing up? Have you been called in to rectify some issues?
I must admit, no, not
No?
necessarily. Okay. No, I didn't. It's a good thing, I guess.
Yeah,
that means
definitely.
I'm busy because they've already called me. So, or any other landscape architect. So,
okay.
It's not necessarily a common thing that you know, that I'm, you know, like there's always the small little things, you know, if you're going to someone's house and they've, you know, chosen X number piece of you know, type of shrub, and it's the wrong shrub, it grew way too big, or the tree is badly placed because it's doing this or whatever. But I mean, there's certain elements that are wrong decisions, but those are very small scale. I would say in the big scale is if you're not planning your overall project properly, you're going to run into, I should have this.
Yeah. One we see a lot when we're coming to list or sell a property is one you touched on earlier, was the water management issue. Was having improper slopes, not having proper drainage, and having a newly landscaped property where water is pooling and then infiltrating through a window or in through the basement. So I think that's a big one that a lot of people overlook, is maintaining the positive slope away from the property and making sure that water is managed properly.
I think it goes as far as at the early stage when people buy a home, if they're new home buyers, is look at your certificate of location. Analyze it. Look at where your property ends. You might have your current shed might be impeding over the neighbors. Or your side property or the back property line, and or vice versa. And so those are all issues that normally you would have to deal with if you're going to start thinking of, okay, putting in a pool. Well, then that shed is non-conforming.
That's right.
You know, I'm not saying that the city will force you, but you know, if you're wanting to renovate, well, then now you're going to have to move the shed.
As soon as you start redoing stuff and apply for a new permit, now you got to have to make it all conform, right?
Right. And just that, or just even get to know your property. Some people don't even know where there's dimensions on your certificate of location. Get to know is if I don't know how far your property line is, and I think it's just a general thing that I would say that people don't necessarily know their property. They know they bought a house, and they know they bought a yard and a front yard and a driveway, but I don't really know where those limits are. And it's almost like a thing where they don't kind of want to go there. We don't know if that fence is ours. We don't want to cause any trouble with the neighbors.
Yeah.
Hey, these are all things that need to be discussed
Up front. When you're buying a home.
You know, just as much as, is there a healthy tree? Is this my tree? You know, those are all, I just find those are probably things that I would say that
really important.
homeowners need to get to know just as much as they're getting to know their house. They should get to know their property as well.
Yeah, good advice for sure. What are your landscaping pet peeves?
My landscaping pet peeves, in a, I'll call it in a layout sense, I would say when the garage is highlighted more than the house. Okay. So the driveway brings you to the garage as opposed to bringing you to look at, the front door. Or the house itself. So I know that that depends on context, obviously, in certain settings and how some houses are built.
Yeah.
But putting all the emphasis on our driveway shouldn't necessarily be too important. It should be on how we see the home.
So an inviting front door.
An inviting house. Yeah. And yes, there is a garage attached to it, but it doesn't necessarily need to. So, and sometimes it's the orientation. If it's a larger property, don't make that, sinuous driveway come to the garage and then the front door is further away and, we're not highlighting it. No, there should be an accent towards that front door. So that's just in terms of an overall layout.
Design layout perspective.
Yes. Other than that, don't necessarily.
How has your own backyard evolved since you've lived in your home? How long have you been in your house?
I've been in my home since 2007. So.
Done a lot of work back there?
Yes, absolutely. There is not a summer that there isn't something going on.
Okay.
In terms of just changing this bed to. I definitely was at the beginning one of those, okay, I need to learn this plant. I'm going to purchase it, get to know it. Obviously, I've kind of steered away a little bit from that.
Yeah.
But no, I it's therapeutic. Landscaping or gardening in general is therapeutic. I was going to ask you,
do you garden?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like I normally have dirty fingers.
Cool. Yeah.
I'm pretty much always in the garden. If I have that time frame, I'll be in the garden.
So you spend a lot of time in your backyard.
Yes. Back and front yard for sure. And now I'm getting into learning how to grow things from seed. So, and propagating, shrubs, things like that. So it's just, to me, it's amazing to see a flower and how it's beautiful. So
I agree.
It's not necessarily just about the flowers, but that's a little bit of a passion. Yes.
Cool. Interesting. Mm-hmm. Veggie garden? And
that too. Yes. I'm not a huge specialist about it. I'm a learner at this point.
Okay.
I do not say that I'm a vegetable garden designer. I know that is, for example, a specialist would come in and could come in and plant thing. Exactly, can plant your summer crop that you would like.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's companies out there for that, for sure.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they'll maintain it and they'll do what you want. But of course, locating them, things like that, that obviously would fall into the planning of your overall yard.
Yeah. From a light perspective, I guess.
But for me personally, yes, I enjoy. But I must admit, I'm a little bit more of the plant than the vegetables. Yeah.
What's your favorite project to date? Do you have one that stands out in your mind? You really enjoyed?
I enjoy the projects that involve many professional teams that come into projects. So you'll get your engineers involved. You'll get arborists involved, obviously the architect, you and the contractors, a landscaping team will help as well. Encompassing or putting all that puzzle together really is my thing, in a sense that you forget that, okay, all those pieces do have to jive. And who does that? Is the arborist taking care of his trees? He's looking at, analyzing, whatever. Your architect really is mainly looking at the house, and the engineer will give you other information. So we're talking about the surveyor, of course. So you're getting the levels, you're getting how to treat the water or the septic system, all those elements really are a puzzle that need to be put together with the city bylaws. So you're getting all that, and that's basically.
So does that become
so
like
it becomes the I'll call it the yes,
a collaborative
absolutely
effort?
Absolutely.
Like, would you
collaborative.
meet with all those different professionals and say, okay, how are we all going to work together on this?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
that collaborative aspect stands out as those are the fun ones.
Right. They're the fun ones because they're challenging. They're interesting. Just as much as you're from that, which becomes obviously a little bit more of a larger project, to I'll call it your typical home. Well, it's some have nothing in the backyard. It's almost a clean slate, or it's a very old landscaping. You really have to sort of get your mind to take all that existing out of the way in your mind and then recreate something. And it's just really seeing the after is amazing to see how people really, really enjoy their yard. And they almost can't believe,
rewarding, right?
They can't believe that this can be their yard.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely rewarding. And the fact that it's rewarding is because every home and every wish list is different. So you're not, it doesn't have to be a complex. It could be, a simple fire pit with a little bit of a lounging area. And people tell you, we're always there. And that's all you want to hear.
I got a question for you from a budget perspective. And if somebody is saying, okay, we've done a big new home build, for example, we've done the landscape initial, I'm thinking of our situation, and saying, well, comes a point where the budget becomes a bit of a constraint. Have you ever done where you've kind of progressively come back, maybe a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, and sort of added to a project to sort of maybe add more plantings, more beds to continually improve it? Has anyone done that with you? And how did that work out?
People will come and see me often and they'll say, we want an overall, so I call it a master plan. And they might not even be executing it in the next 2-3 years. So basically they'll phase it. So they might work on the immediate patio and walkway and driveway, and then the pool is down the road, but they know it's possible. And even if sometimes I say, you know what, if you're sort of, we'll call it uncertain, I'll draw in the pool, we'll see what those limits are, and at least you have the document. If you're selling, you say, look, a pool can go right here. It fits in, and we know what that size is. So you have also, or doing a master plan will give you that ability to then cost it long term. So for example, obviously the pool will cost X amount because you have a plan. You can go and shop around. You could see the amount of paving area that's needed. So yes, so it basically is phasing it out. Or
I think it's a great solution.
Laying it out at first so that you're planning it properly, and then you phase it out how you want to do it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think that's what we're going to do. Sort of do it gradually as budget allows, which is nice to have it all. You have the entire plan, and then you can do it in stages. Because
if you don't, then you don't really know what comes first or last. So a landscaper will help me, will help the homeowner to say, okay, we want this overall, but should we maybe stop our irrigation and just do the back because we're going to be, trampling in the front and, not put the irrigation at first? Or do we, not put any plants on this side because we need to access the backyard later on? So there's, proper planning basically.
Yeah, it all comes down to proper planning.
I think when you're about to start a landscaping project and you're about to call a landscape architect or exterior designer, is build a repertoire of images that you like, whether it's front of people's houses that you're driving by and you like, or on Instagram or whatever, where you've just take screenshots,
save some pictures
that you like, and also build that wish list that I'm talking about, so that when you do have a conversation with the landscape architect and you're about to do a drawing or about to start a project, you're ready to describe what your likes are. Because my goal is not to create something for me. My goal is to create something for the homeowner. So I need to get to know you. Whether it's just even understanding how you designed your interior, I get to then see what style that you like,
Right.
and or if you see something on the exterior in a magazine or on
Helps you with the design.
it helps me sort of just guide, because there are many different ways that I could design.
Right.
So
Okay.
then speaking words is not necessarily as easy as seeing them on image.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it just helps that way. And then as you're going along, then I understand this is the type of gazebo you like. Well, let's go and try to find that type of gazebo, or
Okay.
for example. And another little tidbit is when you do have planting, a team come and do your plants, install your plants, is keep your tags.
Keep your tags.
Keeps your
So you
tags.
know what they all are.
Yeah, and for example, if you had 3 of something and one of them died, having that, and so that you could easily replace, for example, or a friend likes it and you just don't know what type of hydrangea that is.
Yeah.
It's really hard even for the nursery to see the flower and know exactly which variety that was, because they all grow.
That's great advice. I didn't even think of that.
Yes.
And we haven't done our plantings yet. So
keep
thank you.
your tags.
Keep my tags. All right, awesome.
Go around and take them off the pots and
Save them all, categorize.
But you'll have a plan, so you'll be okay.
Yes.
But if it's followed, obviously.
Right.
Because when you do a planting plan, and you're getting all the plants delivered, you're not necessarily able to find all those varieties.
Makes sense.
I obviously try to list out things that are common,
Yeah.
but the nursery that the landscaper is dealing with is that not necessarily having all those. So they'll replace a hydrangea with another type of hydrangea,
Right.
which is no longer following my list, but could be the same height or the same.
So we need to know what that one is.
So just having that tag helps.
Okay, good advice. Awesome. How can our listeners get in touch with you if they're looking to do a landscape project?
They could find me or my information on the website,
Which is?
sbonindesign.com.
Okay.
And they could call or text or...
All right. Well, we'll put Stephanie's contact info below if anyone that wants to reach out to her. But before you do your homework, have your plan in place. And when you call her in, you'll be all set. She'll work with you from your project from conception right through completion. And it was a great experience for us. So thank you again for coming on the show. It was awesome having you on. And hopefully we'll get to chat again soon.
Thank you very much.
All right.